Hello guys, thank you for watching this video. This is FSiPanel and I will show you now how to use this software to do traffic patterns. Here we're going to do a left-hand traffic pattern in Geneva airports. Let's see. Alright, so as always we need first to select the airport. So here, let's say we want to work in Geneva, Lima, Sierra, Golf and Golf. This is Geneva, Switzerland. If everything is correct, select this airport. The second step, as always, select the runway. So if we want an ILS approach, we can have a look here. I select two runways of ILS approach, 05 or runway 23. So let's pick up 23. Then we need to select what we want to do. So here we have the ground position and we want to practice a left-hand pattern. So I will click on left-hand patterns and then you see here what's going to happen. X, the first thing is your upwind distance, then you have here the offset distance to the runway when we will be on the downwind, and finally here that will be your final distance. All these settings can be changed here to meet your needs. So you can change any of these values. You can have a longer final, a shorter final, you can be closer to the runway, you can decide anything you like, and this is the circuit altitude here computed by the software. You can change it as well. Right now it's 5,000. Let's say I want to do a circuit at 6,000 feet. So 6,000 feet, and now my circuit is modified and I'm ready to fly. If I want to change the final approach, I will change the final approach. So now move aircraft, and we can have a new weather. So if I push weather now, the good idea will be to take the actual weather, because in Geneva today it's snowing. So I go to the weather and I've got here the actual weather for the last 7 meters, and if I look here I have a nice weather with snow, medium visibility, and the temperature is quite low, and the QNH 1000, and we will add a little bit overcast here. Let's say we want to add an overcast at 200 feet. Done. When we're ready for the weather, we send the weather, and finally when you're ready to fly you push move aircraft, and that's it. Okay, so we are back in the simulator and the systems are now initializing. Still my control here. FSiPanel is setting everything for you. In the meantime, we can have a look here at the mode control panel. So we have our altitude 6,000, the Geneva runway heading, which is 225, and this is the V2 speed, which will be computed later on by the FMC. And here you can see the QNH 1000, as expected, has been set for you. Now we need to set up our FMS. This is only for the first time, then you will have an option to save the FMS. I will show you later on. So everything is ready for you. You just have to type in FSiPanel 01 and you put it on the company routes. As you can see, Geneva to Geneva, departure runway 23. Activate, execute. Now what we need to do, the perfinits. So zero fuel weight. If you push the button on the left, it will give you automatically the zero fuel weight of the aircraft. We need to put a reserve, let's say 2 tons. Cruising altitude. Cruising altitude has been set by FSiPanel. We decided before to have 6,000 feet, so I will simply put 6,000 feet here. And the cost index is mainly for long flights, so here it doesn't really matter as we will fly anyway low speed. Then the thrust limit, here we can derate a little bit this takeoff, so takeoff 1, climb 1,
2, 3.
and then we will go to the takeoff page, and if you can see here the flaps on your aircraft are already set to 20 degrees, so we're just gonna type in 20. CG will be computed automatically, double click, and now you get the speed V1, V-rotate and V2. So we just confirm those speeds, and as you can see 140 match with the computed one. Then as we want to fly a circuit, we don't want to fly too fast, so I suggest you put 220 on the climb, 220 on the cruise. This will allow the aircraft to fly not too fast and give you some time for your briefing. And the descent as well, 220 knots, That will be very nice for our circuit. Execute. Another thing that we can check is the nav setting. So if you go to the nav setting, we can see here that FSiPanel has already set the ILS for you.
On runway 23.
Alright, now let's have a look at the map display. You can see here the points that have been created. FSI1, and then turn left, and we go on downwind. So if I put a little bit more range here, we can see the whole circuit that we will do with a 45 degrees intercept. 3200, this is a computed altitude, which is a glide slope intercept for your final sector.
On runway 23.
So we will talk about it later on. So now everything is set. We just need to arm LNAV and VNAV. And as you can see, the checklist is completed. We are ready for departure. Okay, back to our FSiPanel. What we want to do, save FMS. So you click this button. It will take a few seconds to save all your parameters, and that will be very nice for your next takeoff, your next pattern, because everything will be set for you. You will see at the end of the video. So basically you set up your FMS only once, and then we go back to the sim. Okay, now we're ready for takeoff. So we had a little bit of power, around 50%. Power is stabilized, we push the toga and we go in thrust ref. Takeoff thrust is checked. 80 knots. Rotate. Positive rate gear up. As you can see now, LNAV is captured. VNAV speed. (1,000 feet), we can set the autopilot on. And we are approaching our turn, the first turn to join our traffic pattern. Now passing 1500 feet, the aircraft accelerate to 220 knots. As we have positive trend vectors for the speed, we can retract our flap to 5, which is the next setting. Then when the flaps will be at 5, positive to 1, we go to 1. And the flaps are moving to 1 slowly. And now we are approaching the up bug. We can retract the flaps to 0. If your up bug will be above your current speed, you will need to adjust the speed. The up bug is the minimum speed you can fly when you are clean. So now we are all set. The aircraft is clean and we are joining our circuit pattern, almost reaching the 6,000 feet. The aircraft will level off and then we will start with our checklist work. But if we go checklist here, after takeoff, landing gear and flaps are up. Everything is completed. Turning onto the downwind, it's a 6 miles offset. And if we look now for the descent, what do we have to do? We have to do a recall. Done. Notes, we've discussed that in the briefing. Auto brake, set to 2. And then the landing data. So the landing data, if we look at the FMS, we will see here the landing speeds. So if we plan a 30 degrees land flaps landing, we just put the new speed. And as you can see, we have a reset MCP altitude. What does it mean? We need to take the altitude at which we want to intercept the glide slope. So it was computed by FSiPanel at 3200. So I will simply type 3200 in the mode control panel. This is the minimum altitude I allow my autopilot to descend, and we should be on the glide slope. Another thing we need to set is our minimum for this approach. So Geneva Cat 1 approach is 1570. This is the minimum descent altitude for a Cat 1 approach in Geneva. So we're gonna set this minimum. It's a little bit tricky, but here we go, 1570, 1570 set. This is the landing data. For the briefing, well, we are doing a Cat 1 approach in Geneva with vectors down to a minimum of 1570. In case of go around, we go around track runway heading, climbing to 7,000 feet, and we will expect vectors for another approach. In case of landing, we have a bad runway conditions, so we'll use full reverse and stop the aircraft as soon as possible. Nav setting is done, the fuel is good, so we are ready now for the rest of this approach. So briefing is completed. The next checklist is the approach checklist, so we just have to check that our altimeter is correct. 1000, correct. And finally the next one will be the landing check, which we will do on final. So now we are commencing our descent. As you can see, the VNAV pass, and the aircraft will start its descent toward 3200 feet to intercept the glide slope later on. We take manual control on the speed. It's nice now to reduce the speed, so we can set our flaps to 1, and when you set your flaps to 1, you can bug 1, minimum speed for flaps 1. So now the aircraft will slow down slowly toward 196 knots. Flaps are 1, so I can continue my reductions. I'll go flaps 5, and I will set a speed of 180, which is nice for vectors. The aircraft is now turning left at the end of the downwind to establish on a 45 degrees intercept to your final approach to the point which we have created at 3200 feet. So let's see how that works. Aircraft is turning. Oh, the glide slope just appear here on your PFD, as you can see. And now we're going to reduce furthermore the speed. So my speed is good to set flaps 20. So we set the flaps 20, flaps 20, and we can bug anything above the 20 bug. So 160 knots is a nice speed. And then the aircraft will slow down to 160 knots. The FMS LNAV will now bring us on intercept heading. So we'll turn to the right and give us the intercept heading that we have set in the default of FSiPanel. You can set anything you like. A good value is 30 degrees, but in that case you will have a longer downwind. Or you can set 45 degrees. If the aircraft is aligned with LNAV, 45 degrees is nice, you will not overshoot. If you intend to go Edinburgh before the intercept, then it's better to take 30 degrees. Alright, now we are on track to this point. We need to arm the approach. Approach is armed. We check that on the mode panel. Yes, we have a lock and glide slope capture. This is your FMA flight mode annunciator. It's always a good idea, it's always a good practice to look at it when you press a button to make sure the mode you have requested is really arm or engage. So we are approaching 2 miles now from our final point. LNAV will initiate the turn, and in the meantime, in the same time, probably the localizer will be captured. Let's see how that happened. And as you can see, the glide slope is good. I've set a little offset on the software so you don't miss it. So normally the localizer will capture a few seconds before the glide slope. Alright, localizer is captured. Altitude is captured, means we will maintain now 3,200 feet. And the glide slope is coming, so we expect to be fully established just now. Glide slope captured, fully established. So now we're only 2,000 feet from the ground, so we need to continue our speed reduction. So we lower the gear. Gear is down. Then flaps 30 and set the approach speed. The approach speed 136 plus 5, 141, as the wind is very light. We arm the speed brake, and the only item left is the flaps. Now the flaps are set, everything is green for landing. We have a length 3 for the auto landing, so everything is ready for you for your landing. (1,000 feet), we are stabilized. Can continue the approach.
Approaching 2, 3.
A good technique as well in bad weather condition, in IFR, in IMC, is if you pass 1,000 feet and you're not stabilized, if your speed is too high, if you're not on the localizer, if you're not properly established on the glide slope, then you should perform a go around. 500 feet. We see the approach light now in Geneva. And I will take the autopilot off just at minimum to land the plane manually. And this is the minimum. Here we go. Keep the nose wheel up a little bit. Deploy the reverse. And we're on the ground. As you can see, the nose wheel steering is on the ground, and the deceleration rate is not that good because of the contaminated runway. So we have a long runway, no need to rush. We have to bring it back to 60 knots. That's a safe speed. Okay, back to FSiPanel. If we want to try again another pattern, I just have to tell the system I want another pattern. Let's try again at 6,000. And you will see now our save FMS functions. Move aircraft and see. Okay, back to the simulator. System are initializing now, and we can check the mode control panel. 6,000 feet, 225 the runway heading, the speed is at 140, LNAV and VNAV are armed, and the QNH is set to 1000 as expected. If you look at the FMS, we have our points, we have the 3,200 calculated. All our settings for takeoff are here. The speeds, the V2, V1 and V-rotate are here. The thrust we checked already. Takeoff 1, climb 1. And as well for the VNAV speed, 220 for the climb, 220 for the cruise, and 220 for the descent. So FSiPanel has saved everything for you, and nav and VNav armed. Checklist is completed and we are ready to fly. Another approach. So this is how we do traffic patterns.